We wear many faces, but rarely our own. In the mirror, we see a face, familiar, practiced, polished, a face we've worn in boardrooms, on dates, at family dinners, a face that smiles when it's tired, nods when it disagrees, and stays silent when it wants to scream. But is it truly us, or is it a carefully shaped reflection, made for the world to approve? From the moment we learn to speak, we also begin to learn to perform. We are taught what is good, what is acceptable, what brings love, and what brings rejection. So, slowly, unknowingly, we craft a version of ourselves that fits the script, a version that is pleasing, predictable, safe. This version is what Carl Jung called the persona, a social mask we wear to survive and succeed in a world full of expectations. It helps us play roles, the obedient child, the helpful colleague, the supportive friend. It protects us from judgment. It allows us to belong. And so, no, the persona is not our enemy. It's not evil. In fact, it is necessary, a bridge between our inner world and the outer one. But like all masks, it hides something, not in malice, but in habit. Over time, we forget that the mask is not our face. And in forgetting, we begin to lose sight of something far more sacred. The self beneath the mask, the true self. Not the one trained to be liked, but the one that simply is. Raw, honest, alive. Imagine standing in front of a mirror, not just one, but many. Each mirror reflecting a different version of you. The one you show at work, the one you become with friends, the one you perform around family. These are not lies. They are not fakes. They are masks. Masks we've worn for so long, they've begun to feel like skin. Carl Jung, the pioneer of analytical psychology, called this outer shell the persona. The word persona comes from Latin. It means mask, like the ones worn in ancient theatre. For Jung, the persona is not a deception. It is a necessity. It is the version of ourselves we construct to survive in society. The social face we wear to meet the world. It helps us function. It allows us to belong. The persona is the well-behaved child, the dependable employee, the charming partner. It is shaped by what others expect of us, and by what we fear will make us unlovable. Over time, we adjust, edit, and mold ourselves. We suppress certain thoughts, mute certain emotions, and amplify only what is acceptable. Why? Because we seek three things: approval, the nods, the smiles, the likes; safety, freedom from judgment or exclusion; identity, a stable sense of who we are, even if it's just a role. The persona helps us fulfill these social roles. It smooths the edges, silences the chaos within, and allows us to be what the world needs us to be. But here's the hidden cost. When we live only through the persona, we forget there's something behind it. A deeper voice, a wilder truth, a softer center. The persona keeps us liked, but it cannot make us feel whole. Jung warned that the danger is not in wearing the mask, but in mistaking it for our identity. The persona is a segment of the collective psyche, Jung wrote, but the mistake is to identify with it as the whole of the self. In other words, the persona is what we show the world, but it is not who we truly are. We are not born with a mask. We are born whole, open, unfiltered, expressive. A baby cries without apology. A child dances without shame. A young soul speaks its mind with no fear of judgment. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, something begins to change. A child laughs loudly and is told to be quiet, asks too many questions and is called difficult, cries and is told, "Big boys don't cry," or "Good girls don't complain." These moments may seem small, but they are the first bricks in a wall that we begin to build. a wall between who we are and who the world wants us to be. This wall is the persona, and it is built not all at once, but layer by layer. Family expectations tell us what is acceptable. Cultural norms teach us what is respectable. Education rewards certain types of intelligence while ignoring others. Religion may shape our sense of right and wrong even before we understand them. In school, we learn to raise our hands, not our voices. In society, we're taught to blend in, not stand out. And by the time we reach adulthood, our persona is fully clothed in a costume we didn't even choose. We wear this mask to every stage of life. In the workplace, we become productive, composed, efficient. In relationships, we play the agreeable, romantic, or dependable one. On social media, we become polished, filtered, curated. We adapt, we perform, often without realizing we're performing at all. The most haunting truth is this: the persona is not just a performance for others, it's a performance we begin to believe ourselves. It becomes so familiar, so reflexive, that we forget there was ever a self behind it. A self that was once messy, curious, emotional, wild. The construction of the persona is not malicious. It's a survival mechanism. It allows us to function in a world that often has no space for raw authenticity. But like any armor, if worn too long, it starts to feel like skin. And the longer we wear it, the more distant our true self becomes. Until one day, we no longer know what we truly feel, want, or believe. Only what we should feel, should want, should believe. That is the moment we must pause and begin the slow unlayering, the journey back from performance to presence. The persona helps us survive. It helps us belong. It helps us feel safe. But everything we wear for too long begins to weigh on us. At first, it feels like protection, a polished version of ourselves, acceptable to the world. But slowly, invisibly, it becomes a prison. We say yes when we want to say no. We laugh when something inside us aches. We follow paths that look successful, but feel strangely hollow. This is the first cost, loss of authenticity. We begin to live from the outside in, not the inside out. Our words sound right, but feel wrong. Our relationships look perfect, but feel distant. Our days are full of tasks, but empty of meaning. And this contradiction, held over time, leads to the second cost, emotional exhaustion. Because pretending is tiring, maintaining a mask, every day, every interaction, is like carrying a secret we can't share, even with ourselves. Over time, that exhaustion doesn't just live in the body, it lives in the soul. A quiet, aching fatigue that no amount of rest can heal. Then comes the third cost, chronic self-doubt. We begin to question, who am I really? Without the title, the smile, the approval, what's left? Our identity becomes tangled in roles and expectations. And in trying to please everyone, we lose the ability to trust ourselves. Our yes may no longer come from conviction, but from habit. Our no becomes a whisper, buried beneath the fear of being judged. The final cost is perhaps the most tragic of all, living a life others expect, not the one your soul truly longs for. You may find success, but not fulfillment. You may be admired, but not known. You may be surrounded, yet feel completely alone. This is the silent suffering of the persona. It allows you to function in the world, but at the cost of losing touch with the world within. And that is the moment many begin their inner search. Not because life has failed them, but because they have lost themselves inside the life they built. Beneath the layers of expectation, beneath the roles, the routines, the rehearsed smiles, there is something quieter, something older, something sacred. It does not shout, it does not strive, but it feels. It knows when something is right, not because it's approved, but because it resonates. This is the true self, the part of you that existed before the world told you who to be, before you were a student, before you were a son, daughter, partner, or professional. There was you, whole, free, unnamed. As a child, you moved from intuition. You laughed when you felt joy. You cried when you felt pain. You created without worrying who was watching. That child wasn't trying to impress anyone. That child was simply being. That is the essence of the true self. Being, not performing. It is rooted in values, not validation. In intuition, not approval. In desire, not duty. In emotional truth, not emotional suppression. The true self is not always easy. It will not always make you popular, but it will make you real. It is the quiet voice inside that says, "This isn't for me," even when everyone else says yes. It's the sense of freedom you feel when you express something honest, even if it's uncomfortable. It's the deep, wordless peace that comes, not when others finally understand you, but when you finally understand yourself. The world teaches us how to conform. The true self invites us to remember who we were before we conformed. It lives not in the noise of opinions, but in the stillness of awareness. And no matter how many layers you've worn, no matter how many masks you've stitched to your skin, the true self waits patiently, silently, for the day you are ready to come home. Sometimes the disconnection is not loud. It doesn't arrive like a storm. It slips in quietly, like a fog settling over the soul. Days begin to feel blurred. Your smile no longer reaches your eyes. You fulfill your roles, complete your tasks, meet expectations. But somewhere inside, something feels missing. One of the first signs of this disconnection is subtle, yet haunting. You feel like a stranger to yourself. You look in the mirror and see a face you know but can't quite feel. You hear your own voice, but it sounds like it belongs to someone else. You've spent so much time being what others need that you've forgotten what you need. Another sign is the inability to say no. Not because you don't want to, but because saying no feels dangerous. You fear rejection, disappointment, conflict. And so you bend, you agree. You stay silent when you want to speak. But each unspoken truth adds a brick to the wall that separates you from yourself. And over time, you begin to feel small within your own life. Then there's the constant craving for validation. Likes, praise, compliments, approval, not because you're shallow, but because you've learned to rely on the external when the internal feels too faint to trust. You scroll endlessly, comparing yourself to others, wondering if you're doing enough, being enough, becoming enough. But deep down, you know, validation is a fire that never stays lit. And then comes the most persistent sign of all, a quiet dissatisfaction. You can't quite name it, but it lingers, like a background hum. You may have everything you once wanted, yet feel unfulfilled. Your days may be busy, yet strangely empty. The laughter feels forced, the joy feels temporary, the meaning feels missing. This is not failure, this is the soul's whisper, asking you to return, to stop performing, and start listening. Because the pain of disconnection is not a punishment, it's a message, a sacred invitation to remember who you truly are. The journey back to the true self is not easy. It is not paved with applause or glittering milestones. It is quiet, often painful, sometimes lonely. But those who walk it, those who dare to remove the mask, layer by layer, discover something rare, something the world cannot give. And more importantly, cannot take away. The first gift is inner alignment, a gentle harmony between what you feel and what you express. Your thoughts, words, and actions begin to flow from the same source. You no longer have to calculate every response. You no longer have to pretend. There is peace in simply being, not performing, not persuading, just being. From this alignment comes a new kind of confidence, not the loud, polished kind, not the kind built on status or approval, but a quiet, grounded certainty, a knowing that you are enough, not because of what you've achieved, but because of what you've embraced. The true self does not compete, it does not compare, it stands firmly in its own light, with no need to prove. And as you return to your authentic self, your relationships begin to transform too, no longer based on image, expectation, or performance. They are built on truth. You attract those who see the real you, and release those who only love the mask. Vulnerability becomes a bridge, not a threat. Depth replaces performance. Honesty replaces people-pleasing. And slowly, you begin to feel seen, not for the roles you play, but for the soul you are. And then, perhaps the most beautiful reward of all, a sense of meaning that comes from within, not from titles, not from timelines, not from what the world calls success, but from a deep resonance with life itself, from knowing that your existence is aligned with something real, something rooted, something eternal. The true self may not always be understood by the world, but it will always be understood by the soul. And once you return to it, you never want to leave again. So now, pause, breathe, let the noise settle, let the roles fade, let the performance drop just for a moment, and ask yourself gently, who am I without the mask? Who am I when I am not trying to please anyone, not trying to fit in, not trying to impress? When I don't have to smile if I don't want to? When I can cry without shame? When I can speak without rehearsing? Who am I then? Let the silence answer, because within that silence lies your truest reflection, not the one shaped by the world, but the one shaped by something deeper, by presence, by intuition, by truth. You may not have a name for it. It may not have a label, but you'll know it when you feel it, because it won't ask you to be anything other than yourself. And that is your return, a return to the self that was never lost, only covered. And the more you live from that place, the freer you become, not just free in the world, but free from the world, free to feel, free to speak, free to live in alignment with who you truly are. If this journey touched something in you, a memory, a longing, a truth you've buried beneath the surface, then let this not be the end of the reflection, but the beginning of your return to self, to a life lived from depth, not display, from truth, not trend. And if you found something meaningful here, something quiet but real, I invite you to walk further with us. Subscribe to this channel, Metaphysics Diary, where each video is a mirror, a conversation, and a doorway into the forgotten corners of your inner world. Let's explore this path together, not as answers to be consumed, but as questions to be lived. Until next time, stay curious, stay honest, and stay close to your truth.